Hello dear students. So today we are going to study applications of the Gauss law. So in the previous class we have studied Gauss law. What does it states? The total electric flux enclosed by a imaginary free surface in a free space is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge enclosed by that closed surface. So if I write mathematical equation of Gauss law, what did I get? The total electric flux is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge enclosed by that closed surface. So remember the conditions of the Gauss law. A surface should be a closed surface. Even if the surface is not closed, we have to do certain adjustment. There are certain conditions where we need to assume or we need to imagine a surface to be closed. We will see as per we get the problems. Okay. And one more thing, we have to always consider that closed surface as a Gaussian surface. Okay. So before we let us not waste any more time. We will straight away begin with the applications of the Gauss law. Now let me tell you from your NCERT syllabus, there are three important applications of the Gauss law, in which we'll do two today in the today's class, and third one you can try it as a homework. Okay, see at the end of the class you can write the answer for in the comment section. Okay, so I'll tell you what exactly will be the homework. Now as I told you, there are three applications of the Gauss law from your NCERT syllabus. There are wide applications, but we are just going to study three. Okay, so first one is we are going to take one long infinite wire, charged wire, and we are going to find the electric field due to that charged wire using Gauss law. Then we will be taking one spherical conductor, a charged spherical conductor, and let us find an electric field at any point due to electric field using Gauss law. And one more thing, we are going to take an infinitely charged, uniformly charged plate, and we are going to find electric field using Gauss law. So first thing, a wire, second thing a sphere, and third thing an infinite plate. What is our duty? To find electric field at any point due to this charged wire, charged spherical shell, and the third one is infinite plate. Okay, so we'll try to study wire and spherical plate, spherical conductor today in today's class, and maybe in the next class I'll do infinite plate, or you can take it as a homework. Okay, so let us not waste any more time. The first application, to determine electric field, at a point P due to infinitely long, straight, uniformly charged wire. So please understand what I am trying to tell you. We are supposed to find electric field due to we have one infinitely long straight wire, okay, which is a charged wire. Now all of you know, whenever it is charged, the charge is responsible for electric field. All of you know the definition of the electric field. Electric field is force experienced per unit charge, or you can tell it's the space around the charge in which another charge is going to experience electrostatic force of attraction or repulsion. Okay, so we are going to find electric field due to this infinitely long, straight, uniformly charged wire. Okay, there is a traditional way to find electric field using the formula F by Q, but we are not going to use that formula. We are going to find electric field by making use of Gauss law. Now as I told you, Gauss law makes your life much more easier because his formula is not a complicated formula. His formula is straightforward, and the condition is very simple: 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge. So let us try to apply that formula and let us find a electric field. Okay, now before that you should know certain concepts also. You might have studied the charge distributions over the materials. Like if the charge is distributed through a unit length or over a unit length, then it is called as linear charge density. Is it not linear charge density? Do you remember, if there is a wire, an infinitely long wire, a very thin wire of negligible thickness, so the charge distributed over that area is known as linear charge density, which is denoted by lambda. Lambda is Q by L. If the charge is distributed over a surface area, then it is called as surface charge density, which is denoted by sigma. Sigma is Q by A. And if the charge is distributed over a particular volume, maybe sphere or cylinder or hemisphere or triangular cone, then it is 3D object volume charge density, which is denoted by rho, and rho we get Q by V. Okay, Newton per coulomb, Newton per meter, Newton per meter square, and Newton per meter cube. Sorry, Newton. It should be coulomb. Sorry for that. Okay, its Q is coulomb. Sorry, I thought it was electric field. Are you understanding? So this you have already studied it, because we need to apply these things, because since it depends upon what kind of material we have. So it's a straight wire, so we need to consider linear charge density. If it was a spherical body, then we might need to consider a surface charge density. If we might have a cylinder or sphere, then 3D object, then I need to use volume charge density. So these are the requirements plus Gauss law. Only two things we require, and let us find the electric field. Got it? So I hope you know the importance of this, and you might have studied this in the earlier classes, maybe third class, I think so. The charge distribution concept is done. So note down along with me. The question is quite big. Shall I erase the question also, so that I can utilize much space for the derivation? So don't forget the aim. Our aim is to find electric field due to infinitely long straight wire. So suppose, I'll draw it here. Suppose I have a long wire which is charged uniformly. I hope you know the meaning of uniformly, where charge is distributed over unit length uniformly. Per unit length, if you get the charge, it is constant throughout that length. So this is my infinitely long straight wire. Infinitely. It does not have any end. Okay. And we are supposed to find electric field at any point P, which must be outside the wire. So for an example, I will assume my point here, and I am interested to find what is the electric field at this point P. So let this distance from the wire be R. Are you understanding? And let us find electric field at this direction. Just a minute. I'll write it big. So this is my point P, and this is my distance R. Okay. Now look here. Can I apply directly Gauss law here? Can I apply Gauss law and directly get an electric field here? No, not possible, because I told you, I made it very clear in the earlier classes ki if you need to apply Gauss law, the surface should be a closed surface. But when I look at this point P, that point P is lying outside the wire, and this point P is not enclosed by any surface. So I told you, if the surface is not closed, then you need to do an adjustment. You need to see here in the statement itself, it indicates an imaginary surface. So imagine if I extend this line and I do something like this and extend downwards and do like this. How does it look like? Does it look like a cylinder? Yes or no? Now this is my imaginary cylinder, okay? Because to apply Gauss law, the surface should be closed. And unfortunately at point P, the surface was not closed. So I drew an imaginary cylinder. Now you might ask a question, sir, why did you draw a cylinder itself? You could have drawn anything. Yes, I could have drawn anything. But it should synchronize with the element also, the current carrying element also. Okay, so cylinder suits perfectly well here. Are you understanding? So now you tell me, the electric field will be where? It will be radial outwards or inwards? Since it is a positive charge, the electric field will be in this direction. Now I will consider some small portion of this imaginary cylinder. This is my big cylinder, imaginary cylinder, and in that imaginary cylinder I am taking a small portion and having a cross-sectional area dA. So total area will be A. Small portion resembles dA. Now come on, you tell me, if this is the surface area, where will be the area vector? It will be in this direction only. Area vector will be in this direction only. Is it not? So the area vector will be perpendicular to the surface of the conductor. Yes or no, students? So delta A is my areal vector, okay, which is perpendicular to the surface of the conductor. So this is my consideration. It is very important to write consideration into an exam, okay. So how do you write a consideration? I have a wire, a uniformly charged wire which is infinitely long, okay. We need to find electric field at point P. So let R be the distance from the cylinder, from the wire to the imaginary cylinder which I have drawn. The electric field will be radially outward since it is a positive charge. Okay, since it is a positive charge, the electric field lines are always radially outwards. Okay, now I have taken a small portion of this imaginary cylinder and labeled it as delta dA. Okay, so dA represents the area vector. Now students, flux through cross-sectional area will be 0. Yes or no? Yesterday only I told you flux through cross-sectional area will be 0. Okay, in which case it will be maximum when delta E and delta A should be along the same direction. That is when theta equals to 0 degree. In case if theta is equal to 90 degree, then the electric flux will be 0 because cos 90 is 0. Are you understanding? So now let us find. Now look here students, I have considered this small portion whose area vector dA and electric field are in the same direction. So here my theta will be 0 degree and over a cross sectional area it will be 90 degree, which gives me flux as 0 degree. Now we know the formula for electric flux. Electric flux is given by what? Phi equals to E S cos theta. That's what the simple formula, or EA cos theta. But here we have considered this small surface. So this small surface area and this electric field will give me small flux, that is d phi. Here d phi indicates small flux for this small cross sectional area dA. So dA will be what? E into dA cos theta. Is it not? So that's the formula for electric flux. Phi is equal to E dA cos theta. But this d phi indicates small flux for this small cross sectional area dA. But we know that dA and E are in the same direction. So theta is equal to 0 degree and cos 0 degree is equal to 1. I hope you have understood this, the direction and all, because I have discussed this concept in the previous class where we have studied the area vector concept. Okay, so now substitute d phi will be what? D phi will be E into dA. E into dA, you can show an vector form. Okay, so cos 0 is 1 degree. Now we need to find, now this d phi is the small flux, but if I want to find total flux due to this wire, I need to either integrate it or I simply do the summation. So if I go on taking this small portion over this cylinder, I am going to get d phi here, d phi here, d phi, d phi, d phi, d phi everywhere. So this d phi, d phi, d phi, when I go on adding everything, when I do the summation of this, I am going to get the total flux phi. And when I get that small areas, I am going to get total area A. So that simple assumption, that simple calculation we are going to do. We are going to summarize this summation we have to do. So summation of d phi is equal to summation E d A. Got it? Have you understood why did I do that? Because this d phi was only for the small portion, but we need to find for entire cylinder, okay, due to this wire. So what d phi will give me? Ultimately it will give me phi. So d phi summation of d phi will give me total flux phi. So now electric field is uniform electric field. It will not change at any point. It's mentioned in the derivation itself. It's an uniformly charged wire. So if it is an uniformly charged wire, that will give rise to uniformly electric field. So that will not change. So summation of d I am going to do. So phi equals to E into dA. Summation of dA means total area of this cylinder, and you know that this total surface area of the cylinder is given by 2 pi r into L. Okay, you can write somewhere in the corner. The surface area of the cylinder is given by 2 pi r L. I hope you know these formulas. Okay, maybe in 8th standard you might have studied, where you study the measurement concepts. Okay, so surface area of the cylinder is given by 2 pi RL. So label it as equation number 1. I need to erase this diagram. You can draw this diagram for your reference. Okay, now coming back to our Gauss law, still we have not applied Gauss law. We have just applied the basic definition of the flux. Now what Gauss law tells you? Phi is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge. Is it not? Got it? Are you understanding? Yes. Now see here, what is Q? Q is what? Charge. Now this charge is uniformly distributed over an unit length. So over an unit length, in the sense what I am talking about, linear charge density, where charge is distributed over an unit length. So in this case, I need to consider linear charge density. So lambda is given by Q by L. So what Q will give me? Q will be equals to lambda into L. Are you understanding? Are you following this point? So lambda is linear charge density. You might ask a question, sir, why you consider lambda only? Why not sigma? Because that is infinitely long wire, a straight wire. So if it is straight, linear, so Q by L, so Q will be lambda by L. So I will substitute this value of Q in equation 2. So substitute the value of Q in equation 2. So phi will be equals to 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge. Net charge in the sense what? Q. Q means what? This total charge over this length. So what will be this? So instead of Q, I will write here as lambda into L. And I'll give this as equation number 3. Did you understand what do I do here? I have just substituted this value of Q and I have written lambda L. Now compare equation 1 and 3. Look at the equation 1 and 3. What is 1 telling you? Phi is equal to E2 pi RL. And what is phi is equal to? Lambda L divided by epsilon naught. So phi is equal to this much and phi is equal to this much also. So what it implies? E2 pi RL is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught time. So from equation 1 and 3, can we write, I'll write it here, okay? Can we write E2 pi RL divided by equals to lambda L divided by epsilon naught? Is that clear? Lambda L into 1 will be lambda L divided by epsilon naught. Now look here, L gets cancelled. Look here, very interesting thing. As I told you in the previous class itself, Gauss law is nothing to do with the dimensions of the conductor. Okay, so same thing, whatever length it might be, L has no role to play here. L gets cancelled automatically. See, I had told this when we were studying actually, and even mathematically it is proved that it is independent of the L. So what do we want? We want an electric field. So we will simply substitute for electric field. E will be equals to what? E will be equals to, I don't write vector, I will write vector afterwards. E will be equals to how much? Epsilon naught 2, so multiply here, 2 pi r epsilon naught divided by lambda. So this is my electric field. This is my electric field. If I want to write in vector form, how do I write it here? E equals to lambda divided by 2 pi epsilon naught r, and here I will write r cap, where r cap is my unit vector. R cap is my unit vector which is directed radially away from the cylinder. So this is the expression for the electric field at a point due to infinitely long straight wire which is carrying certain amount of current also, you can tell. Have you understood this? So this is the expression in vector form, or you can stop it here itself, when r cap is the unit vector which is directed away from the charged wire. Okay, since the electric field is positive. Is that clear? Have you understood? Okay, so this is the vector form. You can write it up to here also. So this question will be asked in an exam for 5 marks, wherein you are expected to write the Gauss law. You need to draw a neat diagram with proper labelings and then write the consideration and go for the derivation. Okay, fine. Have you understood this? So same way we are going to find electric field at any point due to a charged spherical shell. Okay, so see here, finding an electric field by using Gauss law is very easy. First find flux by normal definition, then Gauss law, then use linear charge density, surface charge density, according to the what kind of thing they are asking. Okay, and then simply substitute for E. Have you understood? Okay. Now we will study a second application, that is electric field at any point due to spherical shell. So my next application, second application, is to determine electric field E at any point due to spherical shell, or you can write it as a spherical conductor, spherical shell or spherical conductor. Okay, now just a minute. So we are going to find electric field at point due to a spherical shell. Now a spherical shell or spherical conductor. Now again I have a conductor. What kind of conductor? It's a spherical conductor. Okay, a two-dimensional conductor where charge is distributed uniformly over the surface of the conductor, and we need to find electric field E at any point. They have mentioned, they have not particularly mentioned you should find here or there, at any point. So let us find somewhere outside the shell, on the shell, and maybe inside the shell, and let us see what electric field we get at different cases. So it is very important to understand the diagram first. So here I have a spherical conductor where charge is distributed on the surface of the conductor. I hope you know the charge always resides on the surface of the conductor, and let this be the center of this sphere, and let this be the radius of this sphere. Let O be the center of the spherical surface. Now if my point P is here somewhere, if my point P is here, and I need to find electric field at this point P due to this spherical shell or spherical conductor, you tell. Now electric field, again obviously it is directed radial outwards since it is a positive charge. If it was minus, then it would be directed radially inwards. So now see here, let this distance from O to P be small r. Capital R is the radius of the shell and this is small r. But this point is outside and it is not a closed surface, so I cannot apply Gauss law. So what did Gauss told you? Ki if you want to use my law, a surface should be a closed surface, but it is not a closed surface. So what adjustment we can do is we can draw an imaginary sphere here, and we will find electric field at this point, and then we will come at this point, and then we will find electric field at this point, because we need to find electric field at any point. So let us find by all three conditions. So first we will find at this point. We cannot directly find because of what? Because of the point is lying outside the shell, on the surface, and maybe inside. So three cases we will use, and then we will apply Gauss law. Okay. So shall I erase this also, so that we can utilize maximum space for writing? So did you understood what exactly we are finding? We are just finding an electric field due to a spherical conductor, where we are finding at three different cases. So case number 1, at point P, which lies very much outside of the shell. So first case, remember the first case where the charge conductor is here and the point P is somewhere far away, very far away, and we are finding at electric field P. So what did we do here? We draw a imaginary sphere and we brought that point P inside that closed surface. Are you understanding? And that imaginary surface is called as a Gaussian surface. Okay, so case number 1 is at point P, which lies very much outside of the shell. So here again let us use the formula of the flux. So what is phi is equal to E delta S cos theta. E delta S cos theta. Now again Same thing, the imaginary shell, what did we had? We took a small portion, okay, and having cross sectional area dA, so dA was its aerial vector and the electric field was directed radially outwards. Is it not, students? Same thing, same condition which we followed in the first case. So again, area vector and electric field are in the same direction, so theta will be 0 degree and cos 0 degree will be equals to 1. Is it clear? Okay, this concept I think most of them have understood, because if you have seen the previous video, then it will be perfect only. So what do I get? See, sorry, I need to write d phi. What d phi indicates? That small portion. Okay, so d phi will be what? E delta s. You can write vector form or you can leave it. Okay, at the end in generalized form you can write. Now what did I do here? I did summation. So summation of d phi and summation of E ds I did here. Now summation of d phi gave me phi, and electric field is uniformly charged electric field, so E will be outside. It will be same for a sphere, it will be same, but summation of ds will be what? Summation of ds will be what? Ds is the summation of ds will give me what? See, don't go with the labelings, okay? In some textbook they have written dA, in some textbook they have written ds. Okay, so here just a minute. So summation of ds. So when I do ds, I am going to get the total surface area of the sphere. And all of you know what is the area of the sphere? Surface area of the sphere is 4 pi r square. So what do I get? Phi is equal to 4 pi r square. So what r will be here? R square. See, this is the imaginary sphere. Okay, point P, I had taken small r, and if that is on the surface, if it is radius, it was capital R. Okay, so don't be careful with the denotion. Phi is equal to E times 4 pi r square. Have you understood this? Okay, small r, got it? Now again come back to our Gauss law definition. So this is my first step. So what Gauss law tells you? Total electric flux is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge. Are you understanding? 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge. So look, compare equation 1 and equation 2. So phi is equal to E times 4 pi r square and phi is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge. Okay, so compare 1 and 2. So compare 1 and 2. Okay, so what do I get here? E times 4 pi r square is equal to Q times epsilon naught. So I need to find electric field. So electric field will be what? E will be equals to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q by r square. So this much will be my electric field. This much will be my electric field at a point which lies very much outside the sphere. Are you understanding? Okay. Now, what if that point lies on the surface of the sphere? What would happen? Look at the second condition. If charge would have resided on the surface of the conductor. Don't mind, the dogs are barking continuously. This is, I think, my 20th retake now, so don't mind, okay, for the sound. Okay, I hope you understand. I'm shooting this video somewhere midnight at 2:30, so little bit. So if the point P lies on the surface of the sphere, so initially the point P was very much outside the shell. Now that point P has come closer, and now that point P is near the surface of the sphere. So what will change here? Only thing will change here is this distance r, because radius has reduced, so this will become r square. So this will become r square, and then obviously this equation will become r square. Are you understanding? That's the only thing that will change here when the point P lies on the surface of the sphere. Did you understood this? If you want to write in the vector form, you can simply write r cap, or for first case you can write small r cap, where r cap is a unit vector which is directed radially outwards from the surface of the sphere. Okay, and third and most important case, if the point P lies inside the sphere, If the point P lies inside the sphere, in that case electric field will be obviously zero, because charge always resides on the surface of the conductor. If you might have understood the properties of the electric field lines, there was one property in which they have clearly mentioned that charge always resides on the surface of the conductor. So when the charge resides on the surface of the conductor at point P, which is inside the sphere, the Q will be 0. So Q value will be 0, and when Q will be 0, the electric field also will be 0. For third case, the electric field will be straight away 0. What is the reason? Because for third case I am considering that point inside the sphere, and from electrostatics we know that charge always resides on the surface of the sphere or the surface of the conductor. Inside the sphere or any conductor, whenever it is charged, it will never be inside. Okay, at inside the value of Q will be 0 whenever it is charged. Okay, whenever it is electrified. In normal condition, the charge is randomly distributed everywhere, but whenever it is electrified, the charge always resides on the surface of the conductor. So when the charge is residing on the surface of the conductor, the value of Q obviously inside will be 0, and when the value of Q is 0, in that case E will be 0. Okay, have you understood this? Again, same logic. First find electric flux by normal method, apply Gauss law, compare both the equation, and you will get the electric field. Okay, so these two applications are enough from examination point of view. Third application, if possible you can try it, or else in the next class I will teach. Okay, I am expecting you to solve it, or else it's okay. So there is one more application, that is third application, wherein you need to find electric field due to uniformly charged infinite plate. So you are given a plate, and on that plate the charge is distributed uniformly. You need to find electric field at any point due to this uniformly charged plate. Now this is a charged plate, means two-dimensional, so you need to consider a surface charge density, which is sigma. First find the flux by traditional method, then apply surface charge density, then apply Gauss law, compare equation 1 and 2, then you will get electric field. Okay, try to solve it. Okay, or else I'll do this video in the next class. Okay, it will take hardly 10 minutes to complete this, but do have a try for this. Okay, so once you complete this, the electric charges and field, the topic gets over. Okay, the topic gets over. So maybe next class we will start electric potential and capacitance. Along with that, we'll try to do certain problems on this. Maybe some other sir may take it, or if let's see how it goes. Okay, so we'll quickly revise this topic, because this topic gets over here. If you do this, it's get over here only, or else we need to do one more class. So it all started with a charge. Charge is an intrinsic property of a matter. Remember the properties of the charge. Charges are conserved, charges are unaffected by the motion, charges are quantized, charges are additive in nature, like charge will repel and unlike charge will attract. Then the behavior of the charges is given by the Coulomb's law, which states that the electrostatic force of attraction or repulsion is directly proportional to the product of their magnitude of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance, which gives you F equals to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square. Remember Coulomb's law in vector form also. Then we have classified the substance into conductor, insulators and semiconductor. Then we have studied the charge distribution, wherein we have studied linear charge density, surface charge density and volume charge density. Then straight away we have studied electric field concept. Electric field is the space around the charge or force experienced by the per unit charge, which is measured by how do we get it? 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q by R square. So how do we measure it? Newton per Coulomb. Then we have studied electric field lines, which is a geometrical representation of electric field strength. What are the properties? The electric field lines originate from positive and terminates at negative. Electric field lines are normal to the surface of the conductor. Then they never intersect. They do not form a closed loop. For positive charge, electric field lines are radially outwards. For negative charge, electric field lines are radially inwards. Electric field lines are crowded, then it indicates ki electric field strength is larger, stronger, and if they are less crowded, then it indicates electric field is weaker. Okay, so there are some properties. You can remember any three properties for the examination point of view. Then we have studied electric dipole. Electric dipole is a system of two equal and opposite charges separated by certain distance. Electric dipole moment is product of magnitude of one of the charge and the dipole length, that is P equals to Q times 2A. So that is dipole axis, and then the net electric field due to dipole is obviously 0, because plus Q minus Q, the net product will be 0. Then we have studied two important derivation: electric field due to a dipole along the equatorial plane and along the axis. Very much sure ki one of the derivation may appear in the exam. More chances are there ki equatorial plane derivation you may expect in the exam, but be prepared for both the things. Then we have seen torque experienced by a dipole. So whenever a dipole is placed in an electric field, how much is the torque experienced by that dipole? I think it was PE sin theta. Okay, and remember the various conditions associated with the dipole. Then we started with the part 2. Majorly I have taken that part. So in which we have studied electric flux. Electric flux are nothing but the electric field lines crossing normal to the surface area, wherein we have studied the concept of area vector, and then we have studied electric flux positive and negative, it is outwards and inwards. Then straight away we have jumped to the Gauss law, where I think we have studied enough of the Gauss law, where the net charge flux is equal to 1 upon epsilon times the net charge. Three important application: one for a wire, one for a sphere, and one for a plane sheet. Try to do for a plane sheet. Okay, the logic remains same, the formula remains same, the conditions remain same, nothing complicated. Just use a surface charge density and try to solve it. Okay, so this concludes your first topic, that is electric charges and field. Okay, so we'll meet in the next class. Thank you.